Sorry?
At 9.
Yeah.
You will be coming for the 9 p.m. meeting.
Yes, yes, I'll be there. I'll be there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll just send that link as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think we are going live. Uh, okay, we are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Caravan Heritage. My name is Ishan Sharma, and we are really sorry we are starting late because of some technical issues, but I hope people are now used to it. So, welcome back. I'm very happy to host this another special lecture today, and it's a special occasion because I'm hosting my teacher this evening, Dr. Monika Sharma. Dr. Monika Sharma is a temporary assistant professor at Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and she is an expert on Gujarati merchants and the history of medieval Gujarat. She has worked on Gujarati sources. She did her PhD in 2013 under Professor Sumbul Halim Khan from History Department, AMU. And there she also did a postdoc on Gujarati regional sources from 2014 to 2019. After which she joined the Maharaja Sayajirao University, Department of History, where she takes courses on medieval history. To chair this session, we have Professor Farad Hassan, and Professor Hassan taught at Delhi University History Department, Medieval and Early Modern South Asian History. He earned his doctorate from the University of Cambridge in 1997. His book State and Locality in Mughal India, Power Relations in Western India, was published from Cambridge University Press in 2004. The book was shortlisted by the International Convention of Asian Scholars based at the International Institute of Asian Studies, Leiden, for the Best Book on Asia Prize in the discipline of humanities. Today, the discussion is on Narmada Shankar and his Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat. So, without further ado, I welcome Dr. Sharma. Thank you so much, ma'am, for agreeing to do this. I'm really happy to host you here. And over to you, ma'am. You'll have to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ishan, for inviting this talk, and a big thank you for giving me an opportunity to meet one of my favorite teachers, Farad Sahab. So it's quite, I'm feeling a bit nervous in front of him, but it's natural. Okay. So the topic for today's talk is Narmada Shankar or Narmad Shankar. Actually, in Gujarat, the people used to call him Narmad Shankar, but in books, I found it Narmada Shankar. So basically, the topic is Narmada Shankar and his Suratni Mukhtasar Haqeeqat. Okay. So first of all, I would like to share the thing why I selected this topic. So an interesting incident is, there's an interesting story behind it. Actually, Ishan, you have asked several times for a lecture, for a talk, but I didn't say anything about that. Neither yes, nor you, nor no. And uh, I think 2 weeks ago, when you asked, I said yes. And I was not decided. I was not sure about the topic कि मुझे किस चीज़ पे बात करनी है. And on 24th of August, uh, that is celebrated as this day, 24th of August is celebrated as Gujarati Bhasha Divas, right? So on that day, an article was published in an e-paper, and that article was written by one of my student Pujan, and he wrote about Narmada Shankar and his contribution in Gujarati language and in Gujarati literature. So after reading that, when I gone through the article, after reading that, I sent a text message to Pujan एंड मैंने उसको पूछा कि आपने सूरतनी मुख्तसर हकीकत को क्यों छोड़ दिया? And then he replied that, ma'am, it's Gujarati Bhasha Divas. That's why I have just focused on its contribution in Gujarati literature and development in Gujarati language. Okay. So I got this idea from there. Okay. तो मैंने सोचा कि क्यों ना नर्मदा शंकर के सूरतनी मुख्तसर हकीकत पे ही मुझे बात करनी चाहिए, क्योंकि ये उनका एक बर्थ एनिवर्सरी भी था 24 अगस्त, प्लस वो गुजराती भाषा दिवस भी था. तो this was the reason of selecting this topic. And about the author, Narmada Shankar, Lal Shankar Dave, it's not a common name. It's a very popular, very famous among the people because of his literary contribution. And it is said that when he was a teenager, he started writing in Gujarati language. And he had introduced many creative forms of writing in Gujarati language, like poetry, autobiography, lexicography, historical plays. And equally, he was interested in the research in folk literature. And it is said that he was an outspoken journalist as well. So this was I can say that this is the identity of Narmada Shankar, but not only a poet, he was a strong opponent of religious fanaticism and orthodoxy. And by his famous song Sahu Chalo Jeetwa Jang, he promoted nationalism and patriotism among the people. And he also wrote about self-government at that time in the early 19th century. And nearly 50 years ago, 50 years before Mahatma Gandhi, he talked about Hindi as national language for the nation. So these are few things जो उनको थोड़ा special और अलग बनाती हैं. And in another poem, Jai Jai Garvi Gujarat, he listed all the cultural symbols that shows the identity of Gujarat with a sense of pride. And these symbols belong to all the castes, communities, races, religion, and sects that inhabit Gujarat. So this devout poet was supporter of non-violence, and later on, this philosophy of non-violence was taken by Mahatma Gandhi. So before the independence and before the arrival of Gandhi ji in the picture of Indian national movement, वो बहुत कुछ बोल चुके थे जो हमें बाद में भी देखने को मिलती हैं चीजें. Now about his Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat. So the Narmada Shankar has already mentioned in his in the preface of this book, and he has given an interesting incident why he wrote this book. So reason of writing such a book was that Narmada Shankar was there in Mumbai for some time, and when he returned back to Surat, he was roaming around with his friends. So one of them asked about the history of Surat, and Narmada Shankar was blank. He didn't know anything about the history of his own town. So उनको थोड़ा बुरा फील होता है, और फिर उन्होंने उसका रीज़न जानने की कोशिश की कि क्यों मुझे नहीं मालूम या मेरे दोस्तों को नहीं मालूम कि क्या हिस्ट्री है सूरत की. तो he found some reasons, like all the he describes that the history of the city was available only in Persian and in European language, so the common people were unable to read and understand. Then he decided to write history of his own city in local language. तब उन्होंने सूरत ने मुख्तसर हकीकत गुजराती में लिखने का एक डिसीजन लिया, लेकिन ये एक बहुत टफ टास्क था जिसको इतनी जल्दी ना तो पूरा किया जा सकता था, ना ही उसके लिए उनके पास कोई इंफॉर्मेशन थी. सो he started with the interviews of the old elder citizen, elder people, the senior citizens of the city. So the very next day, from the very next day, he started visiting the senior citizens of the town and asked them about the history. उनका इंटरव्यू वो लेते हैं और उसके बाद वो बहुत सारी इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करते हैं. सो दिस वाज गोइंग फॉर next few months, and when he collected enough information, then the second step was to visit the libraries inside the town and outside the town to verify the information which was given. जो भी कुछ उनको उन सीनियर सिटीजन्स इंफॉर्मेशन मिली थी उसको वेरीफाई करने के लिए कि उन्होंने जो बताया है वो एग्जैक्टली वैसा ही था या नहीं. सो ही कंसल्टेड मेनी बुक्स, मेनी लाइब्रेरीज. उसके बाद उन्होंने अपना ये मिशन स्टार्ट किया. एक्चुअली उसको एक मिशन ही कहा जाएगा जब एक नॉन हिस्टोरियन जब कुछ हिस्टोरिकल लिखने की कोशिश करता है. सो इट्स नॉट एन ईजी टास्क. So this was the story of writing the history of his own city. And this book, Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat, was published under the Narmgadya series in April 1866 from Union Press, Mumbai. And it is preserved in Gujarat Vernacular Society Library, Ahmadabad. And this series, the Narmgadya series, was published on the name of the author Narmada Shankar. So अपना जन्म स्थान, अपने बर्थ प्लेस, अपना होम टाउन, उसके लिए उन्होंने जो भी एफर्ट्स किए वो एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है एक पोएट के लिए स्पेशली. ओके, as a history student, being a history student, I just want to add something, that what was the importance of Surat. क्योंकि जब हम हिस्ट्री पढ़ते हैं, गुजरात पढ़ते हैं, सूरत के बिना हम अधूरे हैं. So I would like to share the views of Ruby Maloney. She has mentioned in her book the importance of Surat. So she has given a few points. First is Surat was situated on the bank of Tapi, which was a navigable river and had one of the largest harbor in India, and that was Swali, which was frequented by ships from different parts of the world. And it was important for the traffic to Makkah, for the pilgrim traffic to Makkah. It had no rivals on western seaboard of India. However, it was connected to almost all the parts of the on Indian Ocean, but still it was safe port. Another point she has mentioned that it acted as catchment point for different commodities which were coming here for overseas shipment. And last point is caravan route from north, east and south were connected from this port city. So the importance of Surat during medieval period is described by European travelers as well as by Indian historians in different ways, but they focuses only on its commercial importance, the activities related to trade and commerce from Surat port. But the regional chronicles of Gujarat shows a slightly different picture of the city, and their inner view of the city is quite interesting. They talks about its fortification, its streets, its markets, its people, their dresses, so many things. Okay, so now I come to the Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat. So the content of this book is very interesting and varied. The book begins with a general geographical layout of the Gujarat. And then author describes the city of Surat. So this book consists 17 babs. Bab means chapters on different aspects. So in the Bab 1, the title of this chapter is Jaganu Bayan. So as its name explains, Jaganu Bayan, the description of the city. The second chapter, Randerni Haqeeqat. So in this chapter, author focuses on the reality of the port of Randir. It was a small port near Surat. In the third bab, he analyzed connection of the city of Surat and Machiwada. And chapter 4 is about Dant Katha Khara Khota Lake. Is related to the popular tales about the city. जो एक तरह से लोकल स्टोरीज होती हैं, कुछ सच भी होती है, कुछ झूठ भी होती है, और इसीलिए उन्होंने उसका टाइटल भी दिया है दंत कथा खरा खोटा लेक. And from chapter 5 to 10, he has given history of the city from 1543 to 1800. So these chapters are dedicated to the simple political history of the Surat. Then 11th chapter contains information of Nawabs of the city from 1573 to 1800. And 12th chapter provides general information of late 18th and early 19th century. Next chapter 13 is about the Suratna Namankit Grahastho Mari Gaelo. Contains detail of prominent and famous household that had been died. And 14th chapter, Suratni Cheej Vasti Reet Bhat Vagere. It's is related to the miscellaneous information like famous things, localities, traditions, etc. So these are the important chapters, but it's quite difficult to cover all the information in an hour. So I have selected some interesting, the most interesting thing जो मुझे लगती है कि मेरे लिए बहुत interesting thing. So I have selected those information for this talk. So I'll start with the information given in chapter 1, that is about the geographical layout, about the location of the town and the region. So in the first chapter, the author says region is situated on the western part of India. He talks about the Aravalli Mountains and says that Aravalli Mountain lies in the north and Ajmer province is on the other side of the mountain. On the east, there are small hills which connects Aravalli and Vindhyachal mountains, and these hills also separates Mewar, Marwar, and Malwa. So the interesting thing is he is talking about the region of Gujarat and the area of Western India, but he includes the areas of Mewar, Marwar, and Malwa as well. On the south, there is a region, Aurangabad, in Thana district, and Arabian Sea are situated. On the western part, there is Kutch, and some parts of Sindh are situated. And he says that this region is divided into two parts, Mool Gujarat and Peninsular Gujarat. Mool Gujarat means the original Gujarat. And then he says that Tapi river flows in the area of Mool Gujarat, and this river rises from the beneath in small mountains of Satpura range. And he has also given the names of the village जहाँ से वो बात कर रहे हैं कि तापी river की origin होती है. And the names of these villages are Malte village and Batul village. So Malte village is in northern Nagpur and Batul village is near Gondwana region, and comes to Gujarat via Khandesh. So this is the route of Tapi River. And further he says, it flows like a snake and meets with the Gulf of Cambay about 30 kilometers away from Surat, and its length is around 11 miles. And on its northern bank, a town named Randed is situated, and on the southern bank, city of Surat is situated. And breadth of Tapi was 211 miles between Surat and Randed. So these are the information, important and interesting information which he has given. After that, author gives the details of the city and says there were two fortresses or courts in Surat. Now, he's after giving the introduction of the region, the geographical introduction of the region, he started giving the town. He talks about the town planning of Surat city. So he says that there were two fortresses, two courts. He mentions courts, which means fortresses, or we can say sort of fortification of the town in Surat. One was inner court and another was outer court, and their Persian names were Sheherpanah and Alampanah. So Sheherpanah was situated behind a ditch where people used to keep the litter of the city. It was built in early 17th century under the rule of Nawab Ghiyasuddin Rumi. And he says that Jahan Beg, who was a gentleman and a reputed man of society, and Virji Bora, who was a wealthy and religious Banya merchant, they were sent to the court of Aurangzeb to take the permission of construction of this fortress. And second or outer court was Alampana. It was built during the reign of Farrukh Singh, when the Nawab of this place was Haider Quli Khan. Author describes that stones of famous Kopi Talab were digged up to build this fortress. And he says that Daroga, Amanat or Shahmat, he is not sure about the name of that Daroga. So he says that Amanat or Shahmat Khan was appointed to supervise this construction. And to complete this, the fortress, some wooden material was added to it when some material construction, some material was lacking for the construction. Then the people, they added some wooden material to that fortress. So he says that that area where this wooden material was added was known as Lakkadkot. And it is said that Haider Quli Khan and Amanat Khan stopped this construction in the middle when they faced some problem in Randed. So he has given the information about the making of these fortifications, and he also gives the plan of the city and says that Sheherpanah, the inner fortress, consists of 12 different portions, 12 different parts, which he called bhagals. So the Sheherpanah was divided into 12 bhagals or parts in different directions. So he has given these the name of these parts, these areas, according to the direction. So in the northern part, the area was called Varyavi Bhagal. In the east, there were two portions, Sayyidpuri Bhagal and Burhanpuri Bhagal. In the south, there were also two areas, Navsari Bhagal and Majura Bhagal. But in the western part, there were 7 portions, 7 different Bhagals. So he has given their names as well, like Makkai Bhagal, Badishahi Bhagal, Dakkani Bhagal, Raja Varani Bhagal, Mir Beharni Bhagal, Mulla Khadkani Bhagal, Lakkad Kotni Bhagal. So the western part of this court was constructed near Tapi River. So the public of this area could use its water for the purpose of cleaning and bathing. And on the other side of the river, there was a harbor for the purpose of trade and transport. Now he talks about Alampana, the outer court, and it was also divided into 12 parts, but there were not these were not bhagas. There were 12 gates, different gates. So he called them 12 darwajo, and the names of these darwajo were also given by him according to the directions. So in the north side, there were Fatakno Darwajo, and this gate was at the end of the outer court. And outside the gate, there was a burs, which was called Rafi Burs. And near this burs, there was a place for pilgrims to take the rest, and there was a deep, narrow passage to go to the north of this gate. Second was Variavi Darwajo in the same northern direction. Third was Katargamnu Darwajo. And in the eastern side, there were four gates: Lal Darwajo, Dilli Darwajo, Sarano Darwajo, Salabat or Salat Purano Darwajo. So later two gates were the main passage to go to the eastern direction. In the south, he mentions three names for or three darwajas: Manno Darwajo, Navsari Darwajo, and Jafar Ali Darwajo. In the west, there were two gates: Majura Darwajo and Atwano Darwajo. And there was an open ground for the purpose of horse riding outside the Majura gate, and a cantonment for the army troops was made outside the Atwano gate. And there was a ditch or a moat outside the Atwano gate, which meets the Tapi River in the north direction, where the outer fortress ends. And from the north of this place, Tapi River has a slight turn. And from the Rafi Burs, the city looks like 1/3 moon due to that slight turn or curve of Tapi River. So this was the description given by him, and he says that there was a fort which was situated as connector between the above mentioned two gates. It is a rectangular gate but not square. Its small wall in the west and another curved wall in the northwest touches the Tapi River. So there is a burs on the curve which is 75 feet high, but now upper part of the burs is discreted. And he says that if we draw a line from Variavi Gate in the north to Navsari Gate in the south, and from Saraha Gate in the east to Atwa Gate in the west, the measurement of both the lines is around 4 miles. So the whole land of the city is around 3,100 bigha. The land of outer fortification or wall of the city is 7 miles. And space between the inner court and outer court was divided into paras or puras. And the boundary of Surat city was decided from the Alampana, the outer court. So basically, he is trying to say that the place between these two courts, it was used for the residents. It was used as a residential area. The names of Para and Pura were decided on the names of famous people of the time. Some puras were named after their landlord's name because their land was included in the city. So author has mentioned the names of these puras of Surat city. For example, Nanpura, and this Nanpura contains the land of Athwa. Rahmatpura contains the land of Majura. Savrampura contains Khatodra land, Khatodra land, whatever it is. Rustampura contains this Rustampura is also contains Khatodra land. Salabatpura contains Umarwada land. Begumpura contains Umarwada land. Mahidarpura, it was in the Navagam's land, and Haidarpura was the land of Katargam and Navagam both. Rampura was the land of Katargam and Dukinu. Sayyidpura contains Katargam and Dukinu's land. Rupnathpura was under the land of Katargam. Haripura, the land of Katargam. Apart from these, there are some other puras as well, like Khededapura, Sampura, Rudrapura, Idarpura, Navapura, Mancharpura, Dastipura, etc. And he has not only the names of puras, he has also mentioned the names of chaklas, the names of bazaars, the names of peat, pole, and he has given a big list of all these information. The list of mohallas, he has given a list of mohallas, like so, and he called that the mohalla as fadiyu. तो सोनी फानियों, वाड़ी फानियों, शैतान फानियों, इस तरह से उसके बहुत सारे नाम उन्होंने दिए हुए हैं. And he has also given the names of sheris, sheri or seri or street, we can say gali. So there were Dania Geli, Nagardasni Seri, Fakira Seri, Dangi Seri, Ghia Seri. So a lot of names are there. And not only the areas, streets or mohallas, he has also mentioned Vadiyu or Bagh, or we can say the groves. So Begum Wadi was there, Alaini Wadi was there, Lal Wadi, Rantwadi, Nankseni Wadi. So बहुत सारे नाम इन्होंने इसके अंदर दिए हैं. And he has given 4 names of Tekro, Tila, or the names of mounds like Ruvalano Tekro, Kapar Dwajnino Tekro, Nagardano Tekro, Hasanjino Tekro. And he talks about 2 khadios. Khadio means ditch. So Jada Khadi and Hagwasani Gadi Khadi. And he has given the names of ponds, Talav. So Dhobi Talav, Gopi Talav, Bhaga Talav, Rani Talav. So a lot of information is there in the chapter 1. He also mentions the names of well. Maybe these wells were meant for domestic use because he called them Hui, means a small well. The name was Chiriya Kui, Kevari Kui, Sakar Kui, Limri Kui. So all this information mentioned in the chapter 1, and in the end he says that the population of the town was around 8 lakh during 18th century. And in the next section, in the section Randirni Haqeeqat, author mentions that it is quite difficult to say that when the Randir was settled. It is said that this is one of the oldest cities, and according to an inscription The Solanki ruled Siddharaj Jai Singh, who ruled in 11th 12th centuries. He settled Bharuch, the port of Bharuch, and Randir was around 20 courses away from Bharuch. And he says about Randir that many people from Kufa city of Arab, who were the followers of Abbasi Khalifa and were called Malik Momins, they came to Randir and settled down here. And they were known as Saudagar. And they were expertise in ship operating. They were also known as Navaita or Nayata. But the problem is nobody knows when they come. बस उनको वहाँ देखा है लोगों ने और उनके बारे में बात करते हैं, ऐसा वो बोलते हैं. The author also mentions the name of Sahukars of the Surat city. So these, the list of Sahukars he has given, like Travadi, Sri Krishna, Arunji, Nathji. This Nagar Brahmin came to Surat in childhood, and his forefathers originally from Radhanpur, and here they came here for the purpose of business. Second name is Varjdas, Vittal Das, Nagar Sheth, Lakshmi Das, Atmaram, Lala Chunni Lalwala, Dula Chandji's family, Tribhuvan Lakshmi Chand, Tribhuvan Parekh, and Haribhakti Wala, जिसको वो कहते हैं वडोदरा वाला, and Samal Becher, also Vadodara wala. And when he talks about Saudagar, he mentions 5 names of some, the important merchants of that time or important Saudagars of the period. And among the list, the name of the Saudagars were Mullah Abdul Ghani, who was the owner of around 19 ships, and Tahar Chalabi, who was the owner of 9 ships. Ahmad Chalabi was the owner of 7 ships, and Saleh Chalabi the owner of 5 ships. So these important and rare informations has been given by the Narmada Shankar, and but I haven't selected all the chapters for this talk. This is selective information, but important information. So I can conclude all this information in a few points. Like I must say that Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat is an interesting and valuable book, and gives such rare informations of the city, which is very helpful to understand the condition, culture, trade, people, and history of medieval period of this town. And author's description at many places is so poetic when he talks about Tapi River and its slight turn or curve, and when he compares city's view looks like 1/3 moon. So वहाँ पे लगता है कि yes, जो author है वो कहीं ना कहीं एक poet है. And we can observe the influence of Persian language on the writings of Narmada Shankar, especially in Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat. Many words were taken from the Persian language like Haqiqat, Mukhtasir, Saudagar, Jama, Karwa, etc. And yes, it is an important source to know about this medieval Surat, but we can't say that it's a perfect work or it's a complete work, because there are some flaws in it, like dates. Dates are not accurate, and the reason is author is not a historian, so he is not that careful about it. But still, it's an important. It is as important to know about the history of Surat as the supplement of Mirate Ahmadi is important to know about the history of Ahmedabad. So this is my observation about the book, and now this is over to you, Ishan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. Professor Hassan, if you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, Monica, thank you very much for this very informative presentation.
Thank you,
I
sir.
learned a lot from your presentation, a lot about Surat that I didn't know. I think it's important for historians to recognize the importance of local histories, and it is you know um, rather unfortunate that historians have centered their narrative on imperial archives and have ignored the local documents and the vernacular literature and the kind of histories that emerged from these local histories that were written in the 19th century. So I think it's a very important source that provides a corrective to the narrative that comes from uh, historical narratives that are focused on Mughal archive from imperial Persian texts alone. There is therefore a need to collate information that comes from vernacular Gujarati texts with the information that we get from the Persian text. So I think that's a very important intervention that you're trying to make, and historians should take note of it. Um, but there are a couple of issues here. One is that uh, local histories on Gujarat were also written in Persian uh, in this point of time. So there were several local histories of Surat that came up in the 19th century. And it's important to see as to how the choice of language shapes the nature of narrative. That's important to see and compare as to how the Gujarati histories were different from local histories that were written in the Persian language. And is there a difference in the nature of the historical narrative? So that's something that you could consider exploring and see as to how the choice of language shapes or determines the nature of the historical narrative. It's also important to realize that this is the significance of this text is that it is a history of a place, not a history of a reign, not a history of a dynasty, nor a history of people. So that the dominant emphasis in imperial histories is on the reign, on dynasties, on peoples, on characters, on individuals, and therefore there's a definite shift in the nature of historical narrative when you move away from dynasties, when you move away from characters, from kings or heroes and nobles to a history of the place. And therefore one also needs to see as to how how you invest a space with meanings. So what is the nature of cultural significations through which a space, an empty space, becomes a cultural place, and how does that transformation takes place within the context of the source that you're writing? I would also interested in knowing as to the, because it's written in the 19th century, what is the nature of responsiveness that the author has about British European imperialism, and what kind of image does he have about the uh, development of British imperialism in India? Because you say that it is infused with nationalism. I'm not sure if it is infused with nationalism because it's a local history. And the author too is very focused on the region of Gujarat. But it would be interesting to see as to how the regional articulation of identities tie up with the emerging identifications of nation and nationalism. But very informative and very enlightening. Thank you, Monika.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Hassan, and thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for today's lecture. There is a question from one of our audience, Sukhmani Riyar. Her question is, when did the diamond artisans settle there, in which century, if you can pinpoint?
I'm not sure about the exact date, but Surat is always known for its diamond business. So it's quite difficult to give an exact time for it, when they arrived and when they said they settled. So I haven't found any information about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for taking out time to deliver today's Carvan special lecture on Narmada Shankar and his Suratni Mukhtasir Haqeeqat. And thank you so much, Professor Farhat Hassan, for taking out time to chair the session this evening and for your very valuable comments on the presentation. I hope to host both of you again on Carvan for another lecture.
Sure.
Thank you so much and have a great evening. Thank you so much, everybody who are watching us, who will watch us later. And please keep showing support to Caravan. We will be back with another lecture very soon. And now we'll have to pack up and get ready for another meeting that is scheduled at 8:30, where Professor Hassan and others might be there. So thank you so much, everybody. I'll just end the live.